I've always believed that the space where you create shapes what you create. But lately I feel like my space has been holding me back. It's about creating a studio that becomes an extension of my imagination. Fuels me to be more creative and inspires me while also making me more productive. So essentially, I want to create a desk where everything just flows and I feel like my whole studio and all of my gear become an extension of my body, where writing music feels as natural as moving my fingers. So, the goal is to create a custom desk that's designed to integrate with the PreSonus Faderport 16 along with my two new monitors. The Philips EVNIA on top with a Philips IPS monitor on the bottom. So I've come up with a plan, which is to build the desk by adding on to a FlexiSpot E7 desk, which also then allows me to convert it into a standing desk. I've always wanted a custom studio desk, and now that I've moved to a new apartment, this is the perfect opportunity to do it. This is about my search for creative freedom. Without this freedom, everything feels like a constant friction. Every step forward feels like a battle, and just starting a new project becomes incredibly hard. This desk is about creating a space that works with me. It's about bringing the ideas in my imagination to life without distractions and limitations. Now, this is the part that I'm nervous about, the angled cut. So I'm hoping that this comes out good, but just going to have to try it and find out. It's unbelievably bad. So I've just spent the rest of the afternoon trying to sand down that tabletop. I got it pretty close, maybe like 2 or 3 millimeters off. I've made a huge mess of this piece. You can see there the difference in the angle. I honestly feel like I could do this for 3 or 4 more days and it still wouldn't be perfect enough. So I think I just need to move on to the varnishing. There's the whole planning phase, then actually cutting and preparing the wood has taken way longer than I expected. And then there's also so many design changes. After already cutting pieces or after working on pieces, I realized certain things that aren't going to work. That is not even remotely close. So it would appear that I do not even have a drill piece big enough to drill the holes for these, so forget that idea. But to be honest, for a first attempt at building a desk, I'm very happy with the quality that it's come out with so far. Another day and I'm still varnishing the desk. I started out with oil-based varnish and then I found out that you actually have to leave that for up to 4 weeks for it to stop giving off toxic fumes. So I wanted to switch to water-based varnish, which is much less toxic, but to do that I needed to wait 5 days for the oil-based varnish to fully set in, and then I've started going over it with water-based varnish. The tape that I use, the varnish has actually leaked through the tape, and I mean, you can see it here really bad. I'm gonna have to sand this all the way back to remove all of that, and then going to have to do another coat of varnish. It's literally been multiple weeks now because of these random setbacks, using different types of varnishes, finding out about the oil varnish leaking fumes for 4 weeks, which was not great, and then switching to this, which is the water-based varnish, which looks incredible. I actually did put the water-based varnish over top of the oil base, which a lot of people said is not a great idea, but it's actually worked really nicely and it's come out with a really nice finish. Check out this finish. It looks awesome. Look at these support pieces. They've come out so nice. This desk is about creating a space that works with me. It's about bringing the ideas in my imagination to life without distractions and limitations. This is the part I've been most excited about, because this is kind of the centerpiece of the whole desk, the thing that ties it all together. It's the frame that goes around the Faderport 16, but it's also the frame that holds the bottom monitor in place. Every song starts as an idea in my head, but the hardest part is actually turning that into sound. The equipment, the screens, the faders, the MIDI controllers, they're all a part of that process. This is the final cut for the entire desk. The interface and the way that I interact with the computer is always going to shape my workflow. That in itself shapes the way ideas are formed and the way ideas come to life. Spending less time interacting with the operating system and flicking through windows and things like that is a big part of what I'm trying to create here. This smooth workflow that eliminates software from my thought process to free up my mind to actually just creating music and bringing my ideas to life. It actually fits. I was a little worried there for a second because it was a bit hard getting it in. We're finally at the exciting part now. Well, this was unexpected. This is the state of the studio currently. Unfortunately, a few days ago we had a huge storm and the entire ceiling flooded. So we had water pouring through onto the carpets. Luckily, none of the desk or any of my equipment got damaged. But this is what we've ended up with right now. So not great. I've had to move everything out of the studio into the living room, and the entire carpet has been pulled up because it was completely soaked in water. The entire ceiling has been ripped open because the whole thing was wet and was starting to crack and sag down. And to top it all off, they found mold in the wall. So that's fun. This became an absolute nightmare. It went back and forth with the real estate agent and the owners corporation of the building, blaming each other for the problems. All up, it was 3 months of not being able to use this room at all. It's funny because I always thought I'd love the freedom to create anywhere. In parks, cafes, just be able to pull my laptop out wherever I feel inspiration and start working on a song. But the reality was very different. Most of the time I was actually getting distracted a lot easier. If the wind picked up or if it got colder, it was hard to just get my mind into a flow state and just focus on the project. I was always conscious about the people around me, people moving closer, whether someone had their coffee right next to my laptop. I just noticed that I really missed the ability to be able to completely zone out from everything around me. I have things set up very differently for my dual screen workflow that works very well with 2 screens that just doesn't work with 1 screen. I didn't have a studio, we didn't have a living room that we could use, and I had to do all of my work from my laptop, and it really slowed me down and just added more friction, more of that friction that I was trying to reduce. But while there were a lot of difficulties through this process, it also taught me something surprising. That limitations can be an incredibly powerful creative tool. It kind of forced me out of my habit loop and out of my comfort zone, and I noticed that I started doing things differently. I started working on songs from different points. I started using different synthesizers, using different processes. It led me to some surprising results, some results that actually were really good, but it also slowed me down a lot. It really did make me appreciate what I really need to work at my absolute best. That's a space where I can feel completely comfortable and let the outside world melt away. A space that really allows my imagination to take over, and where all of my other thoughts can just fade away and disappear. And that's what this desk is all about. So 3 months later, we finally have the space fixed, and now I can finally use it. This isn't just about building a desk. It's about removing the barriers between me and the stories that I need to tell through my music. One thing I can say for sure is that I'm very glad that I can finally show you guys the finished desk, and that I can finally get back to making music in my own studio. After months of adapting and working through frustration, this desk represents something I've been missing: flow. This desk is completely designed for the way I work. The whole point of this custom desk was to make me feel more connected to the music I'm making, and to create a bridge between the thoughts and ideas I have in my mind and the actual process of turning that into a song. This platform here was not just for putting gear underneath. It's so that I could perfectly position my speakers in the right spot, and also so that I could have them at the right height. It's almost half a desk wider than what it originally was. So that gives me enough space to have the speakers in the correct position, and also create this custom setup where the bottom monitor fits into the desk and seamlessly fits into the Faderport. This whole section here is basically the heartbeat of this whole setup. Touch is a really important thing for me, so I put a lot of effort into making everything feel as good as it can when I'm producing music. See, for most musicians, music is a very tactile thing. No matter what instrument you're playing, it's all about the tactile feedback, the actual touch, the feeling that you get from it. And I really wanted to bring more of that through in my process. This is the tactile version of what I'm seeing on my screen. Everything feels smoother, everything works faster, and I have way more tactile control over everything I'm doing. It helps me to feel more connected to the music that I'm producing. I have the Philips EVNIA on top. The ultra-wide curved display allows me to maximize the screen space while still having enough room to have both of my speakers in the correct positions. All of my arrangement, all of the MIDI editing, all of that stuff happens on the main monitor up there. And then down the bottom, I have a Philips IPS monitor. Now, the way I use this bottom monitor, this is my mix console. All of these faders on the Faderport 16, they're all motorized faders. I can see exactly which track is selected. It maps exactly to what I'm seeing in here. Basically, it just makes my whole process flow way better. Now, I can't wait to actually be able to go in depth and show you guys how I use this whole setup. And I'm going to be doing another video where I'll be doing exactly that. I'll be doing a separate video for the screens and then a separate video for the Faderport 16. This journey is about more than just a desk. It's about rebuilding my creative space and redefining the way that I work. It's reminded me that even when things fall apart, there's always a way to rebuild. And sometimes what you rebuild is even better than what you had before.